Hey friends, I hope you're doing awesome because today we're diving into weapons in Godforge. Not to be confused with gear. Let's get into why. Weapons in Godforge, not to be confused with the gear in Godforge, is a unique system that is not seen in many games and some aspects, not in any game. We'll get into why here in a second, but I am very excited for this system. So we're going to go over what are weapons exactly, especially in Godforge. So we've seen weapons for a while. This screenshot is from a video several months back that kind of leaked that there's weapon forge, imprint extraction, imprint transmutation, which we'll get into in a little bit. But weapons themselves are a gear piece, essentially. They're not gear, but it is a piece of equipment that a character can equip that ranges from normal to legendary, that gives increased stats and passive effects known as implicits in Godforge. There are stat rolls and upgrades for these weapons. You can imprint on them, which we'll get into in a little bit, and you can attune them as well for a little additional boost to the stats. They are completely separate from gear. They are handled in their own system, have different systems applicable to them, but there are some similarities, and we'll get into why. So, first thing, we have seen this. This is a screenshot from another Fateless video of the Forge of Waylon, which is where I believe we are going to get these weapons. So, from what I can tell, it is a separate pull system because it says that it takes a certain amount of resources to pull an ancestral or an eternal. And there are chances, and that we can see the details of if we could click it. So chances is what makes me believe that this is a pull system, just like our crystals in Godforge. So we're going to be able to pull different weapons. Now, how we get these resources, I don't know yet. It might be from a dungeon. It might be from just playing the game. It might be from events or something like that. How many weapons we will get, we don't know entirely just yet. But it is very interesting that this is probably a pull system from a pool of weapons. So the number of weapons, I am assuming that there's going to be one weapon per hero. That is an assumption because weapons have a character that they belong to. So Excalibur belongs to King Arthur. Mjolnir belongs to Thor. All of these weapons specifically belong to a character that is going to be in the game. And I'll get that has to do with attunement for weapons specifically. Weapons seem to only be one rarity. So Excalibur is always a legendary. Mjolnir is always a legendary. These other ones right here are always epics. These are always rares, so on and so forth. So I think that's a very interesting take as well. As you can see, this is a breakdown of what a weapon has. So it has star ranking. It has its name, the current level, the faction it belongs to, which is important, the imprint and attuned icon, which is we'll get into, implicit, which is the passive ability that it gives. So each weapon is going to give a different implicit, the stats that it increases, and then the bonus information of if you were to attune or imprint on it. So my thoughts right now on the overall weapon system, it's kind of similar to King Arthur, where the characters have their weapons. However, in King Arthur, it does determine their type, and each character can be every type in the game. It's not like that, but these weapons do choose what their loadouts are essentially, which I think is going to be fairly interesting in Godforge, where these give passive bonuses and technically up to 2 passive bonuses with the imprinting. So it's going to be very interesting to see how players build their characters with these weapons, because those 2 passive abilities could be groundbreaking for how a character performs. So as I said, there's rarities. For what we've seen, it's rare to legendary. I believe there might be common, uncommon. We're not sure, but obviously we're going to assume that the better the rarity, the better the implicit, and that implicit being its passive ability. It's going to define how that weapon is used and who it's used for. So the rarity seems like each weapon always has the same rarity. So Heka is always an epic, Logan is always a rare, Excalibur is always a legendary. The power difference is yet to be seen because all of this is the same information here. It's just a mock-up. And I'm very excited for this. It is kind of similar to... I just put relics up here from Raid Shadow Legends. Yes and no. It's going to be very interesting to see the builds that people can pull. I know I've said that, but it is. You can refine and destroy these things as well. So it is something that we are going to be able to grind to then destruct for more resources, either to upgrade and refine our weapons or to pull for more. We don't know exactly. You are going to be able to increase the level, which increases the stats, and possibly the implicit as well. As you can see, these are all green. So I'm assuming they're all changed as the level goes up. And you're also going to be able to deconstruct these weapons to get more resources for refinement, for pulling, for whatever. We're not entirely sure yet, but the extra is going to be able to be deconstructed. My thoughts is this is similar to most gear systems. That aspect was, at least. It's just the 7th piece, but we'll get into why this is going to be unique. Attunement. Very similar to gear, you're going to be able to attune this weapon to a character. So as you can see, we have an attunement bonus, which is the blue. We have an iconic bonus, which means that this is equipped to a character that matches the icon. So an Izmo character wielding an Izmo weapon, which is this stat. And then you have the all bonuses, which is the attunement and the iconic bonus, both, because it is attuned and equipped to a character of the same faction. I think that's really interesting. It's going to be very exciting to see how you can min-max that. And it seems that the bonus here for the star is also going to be tied to the star level. So maybe this doesn't increase with the level, but with the star level. So we'll have to see how that works. But that is essentially how attunement works, is you can equip this piece to any character, but to get the pink bonus, the iconic bonus, you have to equip it to a character of the same faction. And then to get the attunement bonus, you have to attune it to that character, which means then you cannot move that gear piece unless you pay for it to be removed. I hope that explains that. So as I stated, attunement, weapons attuned cannot be moved unless paid to remove them. And I'm assuming you can only attune to a character of the same faction. No, that is not true. You can attune to a character of not the same faction, at least from this picture here. That might not be correct. We'll have to wait and see. But I am unsure of that at this moment. I brought this up in my gear video about attunement, and I actually talked to, I believe his name is Darren, in the comments of that video about attunement and how it could make or break the entire gear system. And the gear system is very important, especially in these types of games. The gear removal / weapon removal is going to have to be balanced to a point where the attunement is enough of a bonus to warrant attunement, but costly enough to make it a choice, where we can't just attach and attune everything to a specific character and then go and pull our shards and get a different character that we want that equipment on. So we just go and unequip it and re-equip it and reattune it to that character. It is going to have to be costly to remove, to where it's an actual choice of, do I want to attune this to this character? Because if so, I'm not moving it unless I go and grind out for a few hours to get the necessary resources to do so. So that was my main controversy on the gear system, and I believe it's going to be applicable to the weapon system as well, especially with these iconic bonuses and everything like that, because you may not have a character that is good in that faction for your one legendary weapon, but then you go and pull one after already attuning it, and now it's like, well, I should have waited to attune it, because now I'm going to have to go and grind for a couple hours just to equip that weapon to a matching character faction. So that's my one main concern, but I know Fateless will get it right, and it's just going to take some trial and error, I believe. And then hero imprints is the next thing, and what is going to separate this system from every other game that we know. So hero imprints, meaning you can imprint the soul of a hero onto a weapon. This plays into lore a little bit, I think, where you take the soul of a immortal being, a being made immortal, and put it onto a weapon. I think it's interesting. But every character in the game is going to have their own passive, or implicit, mind you, that when, if you say you have an extra rare character that you're never going to use and it's just going to sit in your vault, you can take that character, so long as it's a good passive that isn't applicable to them when they perform or are attacking or in combat. It is only applicable when they are imprinted onto a weapon, and you can attach that character to that weapon, essentially consuming that character and applying that passive ability, the second passive ability, to that weapon. And then you can earn imprints as well, so it's not just for duplicate characters. You can also earn them from events and farming and stuff like that. So as you can see here, this Excalibur has the implicit, using an ultimate ability, has a 30% chance to refresh the cooldown of the core ability. And then when imprinted with Susanoo or Leonidas, it gains the additional passive of, at the start of each round, the hero gains shield for 2 turns equal to 12% of this hero's max HP. That is amazing. Having to where you can choose the weapon and then you can choose the passive, the imprint on that weapon for every single character is going to make some insane builds. Because I know that in this game, typically every character has 2 activatable abilities and then their ultimate. So it may not seem like there's a lot of choice, but that's okay, because 80% of the choice is going to be before you even get into the battle. It's going to be building the characters to where you know you're going to be fine going into that battle. You do not have to worry. So instead of just making sure you're hitting the right buttons which obviously will be a part of it, but I feel like they're leaning heavily into that preparing aspect, and I love that. I love that. Not everybody might, but I do. So this imprinting, we've obviously, before we even knew about it, it was hinted. I don't know if a lot of people saw that. I'm sure they saw it, talked about it. I don't know. I wasn't a content creator at the time that this video was released. But I love this system. I think it's going to blow it out of the water and make things so complex in the best of ways. Now, obviously, this picture does lean towards the weapon forge, the imprint extraction. So you can imprint, and Simon has said you can take that character back, so you can unimprint it, but it's going to be super costly. And then it also says imprint transmutation. You can see 4 epic characters here, or imprints here, that are being combined, and I'm assuming would be able to be combined into a legendary or something higher. So you can work your way up to legendary imprints, either from duplicate heroes or ones that you have earned or something. We don't have to get lucky. We can grind to go from commons to uncommons to rares to then epics to then legendaries, just by trading them into this transmutation. I think that's a very interesting aspect. Wonderful for free to play or low spending players. I just hope that is still in the game, because we haven't seen that before or since. But it is going to be interesting, as Simon said, to see how people use their unneeded characters, like I said, rares, or even once they get enough epics, being traded into this imprint system to give some crazy passives and some crazy builds. I mean, imagine all legendary characters with all legendary weapons, with all legendary imprints, attuned and iconically attuned. That's going to be a lot of stats. That's going to be a lot of stuff. And it's going to be hard to balance, but it's going to be amazing to see the builds, because not everyone is going to be able to pull the same characters, the same imprints, the same weapons, everything. So it's going to be very interesting to see the builds that we have. So my final thoughts, as Simon says here, insane. I'm so hyped. I love these systems. Obviously, I have my concerns, but Fateless has made it to where I'm not too concerned about it either. So, theory crafting, like I said, it's going to be all in the preparation. 80% of the game is going to be preparing to go into that fight and then fighting. These systems lend and lean towards that, and I think it is a wonderful thing that they're doing, and I'm very excited to see how they continue to do so and build off of that. But that is it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you understand the weapons a little bit more, maybe seen some things that you haven't seen before. If you have, or have learned something or anything like that, please put a comment down below. Let me know. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to clear it up.